All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Madeline, and I'm here from Lingso Garden Materials. Thank you for joining us today. And today we have Master Gardener Stu Dalton here. He's talking about rose care. Thanks for joining us, Stu.
Thank you. I'm doing this as I think it's my fourth recorded one with Lingso, and I hold no stock in Lingso except that I think they're great. That's the only kind of stock I hold in Lingso. As I was mentioning, I before we started recording here, I have many, many dozen yards of Lingso materials in my yard, and recently have started using something they just introduced a special seed starting mix that you have to buy in bags, and that was developed for the master gardeners for their annual spring garden market. Anyway, I'm Stu Dalton. I'm with the Master Gardeners, joined in 2016, became a Master Gardener in 2016. And I also have been a consulting rosarian. I got my first one uh, officially of those in 1988. So I've been consulting on roses for a lot longer than I've been a Master Gardener. I found out a lot of details while being a Master Gardener, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what you do in the summer. Pruning, and yes, you should be pruning in the summer, and I'll tell you how. Water, and how to not have your water bill go through the roof. Uh, I grow 250 roses, plus I start a bunch more for our Rose Society from cuttings, and so I use a lot of water, but I try and minimize it by certain techniques. One of those is mulch, and that also improves the soil. So I'm going to be talking about that. And then I'll talk a little bit about beneficial insects and practices to reduce the diseases and the insects. What you want is the insect on the right. We all know we want bees, but on the left of this, you see a greatly magnified parasitic wasp. That's on a bloom of a carrot, and that's quite a big enlargement of that wasp. But it helps you reduce aphids and other pests. I'm going to get started, and I will say that the Master Gardeners is a uh, organization that works with the University of California, and people go through testing and education to become a Master Gardener. And then it is a not-for-profit, and so we're all volunteers, and where the professors and such for the university will work with the large growers and agribusiness and provide information on a lot of things and do testing on a lot of things, including roses, but they can't get to everyone in the state. So the master gardeners in every county or every couple of counties will take care of that. That's a very quick summary of master gardeners. Here. The purpose of today's seminar, I'm just going to get rid of that. Learning objectives of the seminar are to figure out what to do in summer. Care improves the health, reduces the water, the pests, and diseases. So how do you care for them? I'm going to teach a little bit about techniques to grow good roses with minimal or no sprays. And that's what the technique of integrated pest management, which you can look up on the UC site for more information. But that idea is you start with the simplest possible things on care and only use any sprays that are the least toxic as a last resort. Personally, I get by with one dormant spray a year with organics, and that's it. I do that for my berries, my apples, my roses, and I mentioned those three because they're all descendants of roses millions of years ago. The basics. How do you do this? You water deeply and infrequently on established roses. Now, if you haven't been practicing that, there's some techniques you can do to get the roots to go deeper to find the water, and you reduce a lot of things, including weeds and problems if you do it deeply and infrequently. You also deadhead or remove the spent blooms. Was always taught to say, remove the spent blooms. Deadheading may have something to do with the Grateful Dead. No, it doesn't. That's what you do to take off old blooms. Then also I'll talk about encouraging beneficial insects and birds in the yard, which are not only nice, but they do great things. I have very few problems and diseases, very few insects, and I grow 250 roses. So I'm going to teach you how you can do some of that in this class. We're coming up tomorrow, the next day in our area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, on some heat coming in. We haven't had a lot yet, but it's as it warms and the spring blooms fade, which they will, and if they haven't already, the care should change. You should modify your water, mulch, and fertilize. And if you want to reduce water, fertilize lightly because the new, fresh growth will be some of the first to burn and wilt. And it doesn't necessarily come back and you don't necessarily get what you want. There was a sustainability study, a series of them, and one of them was done on roses and where they tested minimal water strategies. They did this in Davis, not known for its cool weather, and Irvine. Uh, they did it in especially over the years 2019 and 2021. And this was called the WUCOLS, WULCOLS study. You can find out more about it. There's a link in the back. Excuse me. Have a little cold here. While you can do this with what they found was much less water than we typically talk about for roses, maybe a couple of times a week deeply, once a week deeply. They did it 2 times during the summer in Davis. That's the only irrigation they did. They did it very deeply. The blooms and what they did to reduce the amount of water used during the summer, they had them go into what you can call summer dormancy. If you don't use as much fertilizer and don't water excessively, they're healthy and easier on your water bill, but there's less new growth to burn. The method for this, excuse me, going to take a cough drop. I haven't been talking much because I do have a bit of a cold. You establish deep roots, use thick mulch. When I mean thick, they use 3 to 5 inches of mulch. Water deeply and infrequently once they're established. Some shade is okay. Many people think you have to have full sunlight all the time, and that's great if you have it. I don't. I have some big sequoias in the very southernmost part of my yard. For most of the year, that gives me a lot of shade. But if you have it where you can get morning sun, even on the hottest days, you can probably get 5 to 6 hours of sun. And that's enough, usually, for most roses. Some roses do even better, and I'll talk about that in a minute. If your sunny spot is the hot afternoon sun, pick varieties that with many petals for those areas and need full sun to open. Sometimes on the coast where it's foggy or when you have cool, wet weather, some, excuse me, some of these very heavy petaled old roses, David Austin roses, things like that can ball up and they may not even open if it doesn't get enough sun and heat. So save some of those hot spots, if you will, for some of these heavy, many petaled roses. You can also look up online things like put in the word rose and help me find if you know the variety. And you can see if it says can stand some shade. That's the help me find site is very good for certain things, including roses. Some varieties can stand more shade. I have about a dozen hybrid musk varieties in my yard to take advantage of the shadier areas since I wanted to grow them. And many of these were bred in the UK in the foggy days of the 20s and 30s. They can stand some shade. An example of this is ballerina, which is a small, heavily flowering pink rose. And another is Kathleen, which looks for all the world like a very large, expanded view of an apple blossom. As I mentioned, apples are related, and I have mine planted right next to my apple tree because it sort of complements the blooms. Thing is, Kathleen blooms all year. Apples just bloom once. An example that is somewhat shade tolerant, which I grow and is one of my faves, is Sally Holmes. Most photograph rose in the Philoli Rose Garden. It's over an arch, and it's a good place to take a picture of your group. And it's one half hybrid musk. Its parents include ballerina, that one I mentioned, and turns out that there's one not too far from the Sally Holmes planting. But when I say we walk, if I take tours there, which I have, uh, I will say, you walked right by one of the parents and they look for a big rose. It's not a big rose, it's a small rose. It's a very disease resistant rose. Um, there are older varieties, some native roses, and others that have survived in cemeteries with no care. And what you can look at is, again, that site if you're looking for uh, the roses that can tolerate some shade or roses that can tolerate, that don't have much disease or things like that. You can look at that site, help me, roses, help me find, and then if you have the name, you can put that in there. What are the drip zones? Around a plant, a drip zone is where the water naturally sheds. Think of the leaves catching the water and sort of putting it to the outside of the plant. The outside of the plant it then drips it on the ground. And my little cartoon there, pardon my artwork, it's just mine. Think of it as either a pot or the ground level. And where it drips is on the outside of the plant, where the leaves are. So that is where things naturally want to get the water. And if you think about that going in a circle around the plant and then it goes downward, it expands out a little bit from that area, but it basically stays in that area. So if you water in that drip zone using, say, a hose and a little berm or basin around it at that area, and then let it seep in and repeat, that's a great way to water. You don't want to just let it sink in once because you're not watering deeply. What you really want to do is get down to the bottom of the roots, and the bottom of the roots can be quite deep. If you use drippers, and I do, I've got something like 600 drippers in my yard, I guess. I put them all in. And use adjustable 0 to 10 GPM sprayers. And there's some you can buy that you twist the top and it changes the amount. And use several and give a timer to give 5 gallons per week. That's about the size. Hold on just a second. I'm going to have my gardener stop using something. Roberto? Not today because I'm on the thing. I don't want the noise. Yeah. Sorry, I do have a gardener for the work and he was going to use my electric weed whacker to whack things, but it'll probably come in the background. Um, the potted roses do need more frequent watering. The problem is the water drains out and the pot either adds heat or gets uh, wicks out moisture if it's a terracotta pot. And black really heats up. If you use a big plastic container, you can grow some pretty big roses in there. I do. But be aware, if they're not shaded and you get a hot day, you're putting the roots in an oven. And they don't like that. Um, and to avoid that, you can whitewash the outside of a black plastic pot, but that's a little more than I usually do. But you also want the roots to know that they shouldn't go through the bottom hole. I've had that happen. When you sit the pot on the ground, the roots will say, oh, there's moisture under there. I'll keep going. And they'll plug the bottom hole in the pot. You can use something that they call pot feet or old tiles broken up or whatever you want to keep an air gap underneath. And that's a good way to reduce the possibility that you'll actually drown the plant by not having any drainage. On timing, you've probably heard it before. Water early in the morning. Doesn't matter your method, whether it's overhead watering, whether it's a hose, a sprinkler, if you have drippers, the best time is early in the morning. The why about that is to get less fungal disease, particularly black spot. It's a pretty common thing, happens especially in the early part of the year when, like this year, after the leaves have come out, you get water and you can't tell when it's going to come because it's rain. But what black spot needs to germinate is 5 to 8 hours of spores in liquid water in order to germinate. So if you can let them dry out, which is pretty easy these days, by watering in the morning, you can reduce black spot. Now, once black spot's established, it will defoliate a plant. So take off those leaves by pulling down on the leaves if you need to. That's the good way to do it. I'll talk more about integrated pest management a little later and talk a little bit about that. But again, best is to water deeply for drip or hose watering. You may need to have multiple sessions, like if you make a little dam around it and you put in a couple of gallons of water, you might want to add it later to get the water deep. Powdery mildew germination is caused by warm days and cool nights, not by overhead watering, as most people think. Overhead watering, according to UC, on their site, reduces powdery mildew. That's not what most people assume. It's somewhat counterintuitive. You think, okay, that's mildew, well, wet, moist. No, it's warm days, cool nights. The cool nights and fog and things we get in the Bay Area and out on the coast can cause that kind of an issue. UC says potassium bicarbonate can help eradicate mildew. Now, if there's one thing that I think is probably not as harmful to people or pets or anything else, it's potassium bicarbonate. I was a chemical engineer by background. It's related to sodium bicarbonate, otherwise known as baking soda. They had a commercial version of this for home use that was called bicarb old-fashioned fungicide because bicarb has been used as a potassium bicarbonate has been used as a fungicide for over 100 years, but couldn't make any money on it because you couldn't patent it. So that can help eradicate mildew. You can get that. It can be obtained as a nutritional supplement if for people low on potassium. And that is on a lot of mail order sites. Here are some tips from the head of the nursery manager at UC Davis Arboretum and Public Gardens. And I thought the quotes were really useful. Suggest that it's possible to train your roses, train them to be more drought tolerant. By the way, a rose by any other name is probably being pruned and you're probably saying bad words to it. But in this case, you want to train the rose. Couple of his quotes. Obviously, you want roses from your rose bush, but if you want it to be used to get used to receiving less water while it gets established, keep it pruned back this summer. That's what I also tell people when they're getting things started from cuttings. you don't want to have it go wild up on top because it needs a strong root system to maintain that. Once it gets going, yeah, that's great. But until it gets going, there's nothing much to sustain it. And if they have shallow roots and you don't water very often, guess what? It's not going to be good. So the other quote that I like, it will signal the roots to expand and explore the soil by having it cut back. Then, when you do water it slowly and deeply. You'll thank me later. So that's what the UC Gardener Manager says. And then something that I've tried to illustrate here with my cartoons is you want there to be light and air circulation. Don't plant them too close together. Uh, and then during the summer, prune lightly, but you can do so not just to deadhead, but to reduce disease. Deadheading or removing spent blooms is great. This time of year, if you want to get more blooms, you have to do it because otherwise the rose thinks it's the end of the year and I shouldn't grow anymore. I've already produced my seeds, which are the hips. But if you let air and light into the middle, you cut out canes, including and leaves growing into the center of the bush. This lets air and light in and reduces fungal disease. In fact, you can really do it by reducing enough so that the light can directly impinge on what's called the bud union down at the bottom. That's where the graft is connected. And then what I like to do, I don't always do it, but when I get the time, I prune out the bottom 8 to 12 inches of leaf on the very bottom. You can sort of see that in the cartoon over here. The It reduces splashing water and spores from the bottom, and it allows more air circulation to come up through the middle. It also, by doing this, allows the birds to get, excuse me, birds to get down there, and birds will say, "Oh, hey, there's some insects down there that I can eat." Uh, they couldn't find them if it's all crowded in the middle. Now, I've overemphasized it. I made a sort of a big V in the middle, but that's the idea. You take out some of the things that are crossing and clogging up the middle. As you do this, I give separate classes, and I've given one recorded on gardening as we age and safety in the garden. But this one, you have to stay safe from thorns. As you're reaching into the middle, you want gauntlet gloves. Gauntlet just means the part up the sleeve, if you will. Oop, didn't mean to do that. The part up the sleeve to the middle. And you want things that can reach in, like a longer lopper, if need be. You want to have sharpened uh, tools that helps on the canes themselves so they aren't crushed. They're cut clean and they'll heal. And it is easier on your hand. Now, the gloves that I prefer have supple fingers that don't really get nasty if they get wet. The best skin for that to be the best, pardon me, leather for that is goat skin. They often the gauntlets are rawhide. They don't have to be as limber, but you get better feel with goat skin. So I have a bunch of pairs of gloves, and the best ones I have are goat skin on the fingers and the palms, and it's fairly thorn penetrating resistant. Also, protect your eyes, protect your body. Heavy clothes. I know it's hard on a hot day, but I always try and wear long sleeves that I don't care much about. Uh, and glasses or goggles. The glasses or goggles are important because your eyes are important. And I've had a climbing rose thorn whip up and get me right above the eye. Blood came down, and I thought I should be wearing my goggles. So get some cheap clear goggles, and you can wear those if you don't have glasses. Sharpen the tools. Easier on the rose, easier on you. You want it so that a folded over piece of regular binder paper or whatever, you can cut that easily. It's sharp enough. It has to be sharp like a scissors. And you just follow the bevel to sharpen there. carbide or diamond hones that you can buy. Carry your phone in the garden. That's saying safe in general. You may fall. You could break a leg, whatever. I have a whole piece on that that's actually in Lingso's library on gardening as you age. But carry your phone. That way you can get help if needed. Mulch. Mulch reduces evaporation, yes. Reduces the amount of water you need. Coarse wood mulch encourages beneficials. They like the nooks and crannies there. You can sort of see in the picture of mulch, and they live in there, some of the beneficials. As the decomposers of the beneficials decompose the wood, turns into good soil. So it also reduces the weeds. It shades the ground. You can also use cover crops to shade that are shallow rooted, things like alyssum. By the way, if you plant it, it will be there for a long time, but it's very beneficial. Uh, the certain companion plants encourage beneficial insects, and I'm going to go into that as part of the IPM. So you can do more than one thing. You can reduce water use, you can shade the ground, you can get some nice looking plants, and some practical plants that will, in your yard, that will help attract the beneficial insects. Let's talk a little bit about the technique of integrated pest management. If you want a much better primer, you can look on the UC, as in University of California, UC, IPM, and if you want to get specific, add roses. But you can also add pests, roses, anything like that. But this pyramid actually came from a different source, from pesticide.org, because it was prettier for what I wanted to do. You start from the bottom and you work up. The thing you should always do is prevent. The way you plant, not too close. The way you go out and check it, walking the garden. It's nice anyway. Pick a rose, pick some veggies in your garden, but walk it, and then ID issues early. Well, just like you should get preventative medicine. Well, this is preventative medicine for the garden. But then you start from the bottom, you go up to culture. I've talked a little bit about opening for air and light. I've talked a little about summer pruning and water and mulch and having living soil, which I haven't talked about much, but there's a lot on the site of Lingso about living soil. And they sell some great stuff. Again, I don't own any stock in Lingso. I wish I did. Um, it's employee owned. So the physical and mechanical. Don't spray aphids. Don't bother buying ladybug adults because they'll eat a few aphids and they'll fly off to your neighbors where there are more aphids. But you can spray them with water. Spray the roses with water. I use as a little arm that is one of those bent water wands, and I add a sprayer on the end that gives more spray uh, momentum. Or you can just use a sprayer, hose end sprayer, and you wash from the bottom down, I'm sorry, from the top down, from the bottom up, and then from the top down again. You'll get rid of 99% of the aphids, or at least 90 on that one wash. You do it twice, you've gotten rid of almost all of them. And if you see any more, you can do that. Uh, and then if you've got infections, and I mentioned this on things like black spot or rust, pick off the infected leaves and dispose of them. You have to do it with black spot. You should do it with rust. The uh, the reason you dispose of them is so is you don't want to have them sitting on the ground and providing spores for more infection. Now, say I have gloves on and I have my shears and I'm cutting off some leaves or I'm pulling them off. Which has more surface area? Your hands and your gloves have more surface area than the shears. People forget that they may have the spores, especially when you touch something like a really badly infected rose rust leaf, it'll leave an orange on the gloves. Okay, then I'll go to the next uninfected plant. What have I just done? I've not been good about how I'm spreading the issue. And if you add that to water or moisture, you can really spread things. Biological. There are many beneficial insects, which we'll talk about, and cover crops, which we'll talk about, that encourage beneficials. Uh, and then I mentioned uh, potassium bicarbonate is one example that's was sold as a pesticide, but it's the least harmful. And there's some other ones that are low in harm that you can use. I didn't use any of them this year, and I don't have much of it in the way of disease because I've done what I'm talking about here. Excuse me. The chemical pesticide is the last resort. Two of the least harmful that are certified for organic use, and you may even get them used on your vegetables in the organic section of your grocery store or farmer's market. If they say unsprayed, they can't use them, but it's certified for organic use. Neem oil, or a derivative of that, is from the neem tree from India, and it's been used for thousands of years as a pharmacological aid in India, and it was used for toothbrushes, the twig, to brush teeth way back. So relatively low toxicity. Uh, Table salt is 4 times the toxicity of neem, the basic ingredient, according to the hazards things that are put out, the hazard listings that are put out. The other one is a spinosad. It has some different names in the store, but if you look for the chemical ingredient, spinosad, the one that makes me laugh the most is, let's see, what's the doctor's name? Dead bug spray. So it will disrupt the juvenile hormones and some other things, and it will kill many insects, including good ones, including bees and things. So any of these sprays that you use, or soaps or oils, soap will smother a bee. Uh, Soap will also burn the tip of a leaf if you put it on during hot weather. So never spray anything that you do use, including soaps, uh, milk, anything else, when it's going to pool down at the bottom of the leaf and then it gets hot and it burns. It acts like a lens too. Um, Good bugs, bad bugs, and I even have a picture of what I think is an ugly bug. That's an ugly weevil there in the upper left. That's called a curculio rose weevil, specific to roses. Those are my buds, my weevils in my yard. And after that, you get the stuff at the bottom there where it's a whole bunch of dead buds with a bunch of holes in them and they turn black and fall off. When they fall off, they fall on the ground. And the larvae say, oh, this is where I'm going to go stay the winter. Then they come back in the spring. I had those for a couple of years until I found out a very easy way to get rid of them. It's non-toxic. First, you get a bucket of soapy water. You put it below the plant, and then you wait until they're crawling back, and then you go try and pick them. If you pick them, you just throw them in the water. If you can't get to them, they often jump off right into the soapy water, and that kills the bug, kills the weevil. Uh, so uh, the two other things I've got in the middle and the top there are the aphid, tiny little thing there, and something that is a caterpillar. There are many of them in my yard. I have oak trees around, and the oak uh, moth, caterpillar, comes down and it's fuzzy. So if you try and hand pick it, you'll irritate your skin. But you can use BT on it, or you can use gloves, and you can hand pick those. This is not that same caterpillar. It's not fuzzy and it's not black um, like the oak caterpillar. And then on the far right there at the top, there's a sawfly larva, and it's called the rose slug. It's not a slug. It's more like a caterpillar. It has feet, so it can't be a slug. And you can see it munching on the chlorophyll layer of the top of a leaf. It doesn't necessarily eat through. It does something called skeletonizing the leaf. And you may see all of a sudden you got a bunch of brown leaves with not holes, but big brown areas in them. And if you look carefully and hold it up to the light, you'll see it's translucent and you can see the cell walls. They think, I don't like that stuff. I like the nice, tender chlorophyll layers. So that's a sawfly larva. And if you can find them, usually underneath a leaf in the mornings, hand pick them uh, using the squish method with gloves or not. And then uh, if you can't find enough of them and you have a pretty bad infestation, you might try the spinosad as an example. But that's a last resort. You're better off hand picking wherever you can. Now, the other thing is the companion plants and good bugs. They're over on the left there, the parasitic wasps. I had a picture on my front cover. Here's a picture a little further away, and that the diameter of that bloom, it's a carrot bloom, and it's about 2.5 inches wide. So you can tell this is a pretty small wasp. Uh, I don't know that they can sting. I've never been stung by anything. And they're all over this carrot right now. I've got this in my yard. I took this picture a week ago. Uh, Lady beetle larvae. And I put that before the adults because I said they can fly off, the adults. You buy them, they've been swarming, they collect the swarms, you sell them, and it's great for the neighborhood, but it'll help a little bit on your aphid problem. And you can get rid of aphids just by washing them off. Aphids are dumb. They don't get back on. Lacewings, great beneficial insects. They have lacy wings and they're green. Leather wings, they have brown, they're brown, and some people they think is that a bad bug or a good bug? But these are soldier beetles or leather wings, soldier beetles. And then, as I mentioned, companion plants, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Other insects. Don't spray the bees. If you do spray with anything like soaps or any other relatively non-toxic, or the things like horticultural oil, soaps, and a lot of insects have book lungs and they're clogged, and that's how they suffocate, and that's how the oils work. They're not toxic per se, uh, but you don't want to spray the bees. Uh, you should actually leave a shallow water dish with pebbles for bees to have a drink, but be able to get out and not drown. If I leave my pool open, they'll get in there and drown. They love single roses. There are a bunch of them. I think this one is a lighter rose. It might also be another single rose, but I think that's lighter rose. Notice how a nice open yellow stamens there. There's pollen right there. They love it. Um, the ladybug adults fly away. The eggs of nymph are more useful because they stay there. Some things that are called good bugs, when you look at the general classification, assassin bugs. I have a different opinion. I tried to raise monarchs, had a couple, did raise a couple, but I had to feed them in glass things because as soon as caterpillars appeared, the assassin bugs appeared, have a big X on the back and they have a red X. And they ate my monarch caterpillars, and I didn't like that. But they eat other things too. They're pretty indiscriminate. So are they good or are they bad? I have different opinions. Here are some plants you can plant. This came out of an American Rose magazine, which did a great article on this. I've been receiving this magazine since 1985, and this is one of the ones I kept and kept a copy of. It talks about uh, the kind way of growing roses, and it's all basically about integrated pest management. And it talks about giving beneficials what they need, like coarse mulch, ground covers, small flowered plants, plant diversity, sequential flowering, so there's always something for them, and growing natives, which often encourage the native insects that are good. So those are all the way you encourage them. The plant families, I think, are very interesting. I didn't know these were families, but I did put all of them in parentheses. But the carrot family, Aplasia, has carrot, coriander, dill, fennel, and Queen Anne's lace. Now, you may have a wild area that has Queen Anne's lace, but you may be growing these other things. I let my last fall's crop of carrots grow, and that's where I got this big head on the right here of a bloom. You can see all these little tiny, tiny flowers. That offers food for the small pollinators. And these small pollinators are also a beneficial insect because they go lay eggs on the aphids. And they're an excellent example. I don't have many aphids, and I wash off any that I get in the early spring. The aster family, blanket flowers, coreopsis, cosmos, goldenrod, maybe not grow goldenrod if you're allergic, but cosmos, coreopsis are nice and easy to grow, and they're also a type of thing that will self-seed and come back. Marigolds, also in the family, are sunflowers and yarrow. Yarrow is a great one. Nice small flowers, etc. Bean, alfalfa, fava, sweet clover are all in the bean or legume sort of area, and they're also good. And then mustard or brassica, and that includes, excuse me, uh, alyssum, mustards, lantana, and other things like buckwheat, milkweed, and milkweed are good for other non-beneficial insects, but I like them, like monarchs. What manages what? I'm going to get close to the end here, and so get your questions ready. What pests are managed by what? And again, I've got a close-up of that parasitic wasp on a carrot blossom. Now it looks like, oh, there's a real flower there, but that's a real close-up. And you can tell that does look like a wasp, a little black wasp. But for aphids, green lacewings, they're just a really great one. The lady beetle, otherwise known as ladybug, the parasitic wasps, soldier beetles, syrphid flies, and all I use for aphids is water spray. I don't depend on these other guys, but if they're around, I have been encouraging them for everything because they're really good. Thrips. If you have a white rose and all of a sudden you see black dust on it, and you look carefully with your glasses and it moves, that's probably thrips. I say white because you can see it on light colored roses, and it often shows up first or only on white roses. I don't know exactly why, they must like it. But the minute pirate bug, the parasitic wasp, which we've talked about, but you can use neem oil and spinosad. They're sort of last resort on thrips. Or what I did this year, I didn't spray, but I found some on a couple of white roses. I took them off early because I saw them, disposed of them in the garbage, not in my uh, worm bin for compost. And if you need to spray, neem oil or spinosad will help. Again, you don't want to do oils of any kind, including neem, on a day over 80 degrees. Rose slugs, hoverfly larvae, hand pick, squish on fresh leaf damage. That's that picture again that shows them. That's the preferred way. Narrow Rangs oil, that's supposed to be range oil. That's like horticultural oil. Insecticidal soap, neem oil, and spinosad can work on rose slugs. Those are examples of the pests that are managed by some of the most common things and some of the things that can manage them. The article in the American Rose magazine is quite extensive and it has a lot more information, but since it's copyrighted, I couldn't put all of it in. I could put some of this information in though. I'm about at the witching hour, and I'm going to thank the Lingso garden materials for supporting the presentation. As I say, I have a few others like growing roses organically and one on gardening as we age, tips, tools and techniques, and a couple, and one that's for after deadheading or after the first bloom, what's next. So those are also on the Lingso site and published. I'm prepared by me. I'm American Rose Society Master Rosarian since 2016. I'm a UC Master Gardener. I'm sorry, since 1988 on the Rosarian part, consulting Rosarian, and then UC Master Gardener for the last 9 years. Photographs are by me, unless otherwise noted. Very few illustrations are from a graphic, and I've said it where I do that. If you want to stay connected on to the Master Gardener's work, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter. There's a QR code there. Consider a donation to support more events like this one to the university. That's the other thing. There are open helplines that take messages and then we get back to you. You can submit questions on the website. You can try SMSF Master Gardeners, and you can then also bring things in to our office hours. The Mondays, 10 to 1, Elkis Ranch out in Half Moon Bay. Don't want yourself, you won't get much self-service out there, but it's an interesting place to go. Tuesdays, 10:30 to 1:30 at San Francisco Botanical Gardens. Thursdays at Veterans Memorial Senior Center in 1455 Madison in Redwood City. And our website, let me try that again, smsf-mastergardeners .ucanr.edu, or just try UC Master Gardeners and you'll be able to find that website and it'll ask you which one. Follow us. I have a pretty extensive list of references, most of which you can get hold of directly. Things on landscape diseases, what is IPM, pest notes, and they include things on aphids and mildew and all sorts of things. Pesticide.org on the 5 steps of IPM. The Arboretum, how to train your roses to be more drought tolerant, and the UC study on water use down at the bottom there. And then the American Rose Society, if you have their handbook for consulting rosarians, and IPM, A Kind Approach for Growing Roses from the American Rose magazine last year. So those are the references. I'm going to go back, leave it on that one in case anybody wants to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, but I'd be happy to answer questions at this point.
All right. And yeah, definitely just if you can see the meeting chat there, just message in your questions. I'm going to go as they come in here. So our question here is actually about clippers. And the question is, what do you use to sharpen your clippers? And then a follow-up question to that is, how do you clean your clippers in between projects?
Two answers to two questions there. First one's, I did mention sharpen tools with a carbide or diamond hone. The carbide sharpener I happen to use, I don't own any stock in Corona either, but I happen to use it's about a $10 or $9 on the internet. You can find them in other stores, but it's Corona. It's a little red handled, and it on the very tip of it, it's a little piece of special metal called silicon carbide, very hard metal, or very hard material. And you hold the shears. I point them toward me in my left hand because I'm right-handed, and I follow the bevel edge, only the bevel edge. And meaning if it's dull looking, which it usually is if you haven't sharpened it recently, you follow that edge and scrape it along. When it's fairly sharp, you can do it 4 or 5 times. You might need a few more scrapes. You can also use the flat part to clean off residue a little bit. If you want to really clean them, you can use steel wool or a steel chore girl type thing. And then you can clean it. I actually use something that's called a shears cleaning and disinfectant. But I don't do it in between each use. I typically sharpen at the beginning of a session, and then if I have anything that's infected, I will that I know is infected, like a gall, I will take care of it by disinfecting. Do not use chlorine bleach. The reason is simple. Chlorine bleach will corrode your very expensive Felco pruners or any other kind of pruners. Excuse me. Excuse me. So you know it's sharp when you can fold over a piece of paper and I'll actually show it here. Take a piece of paper, fold it, and it's like the scissors. If you can cut that with the scissors with no effort at all, you got a sharp pair. If you can't, and it mushes, technical term, if it makes a problem trying to cut it, it's not sharp enough. If you follow the bevel, I have heard that it's 26 degrees, but if you follow the bevel, you shouldn't have a problem. What I use is a spray, and I bought it on the internet. Sorry, I bought it on Amazon, and it shears spray and disinfectant. I think you could find it under that with their search function. It's a spray can, and I had to buy a second one because I broke off the top on the first one, so I had to use it. But it's a good spray. You can use it on any tools, and it provides lubrication and uh, corrosion resistance and disinfectant. But also disinfect your hands after, if you use your hands. If you use gloves, uh, you can use at least a wet cloth and wipe off the extra spores. Next question.
All right. What rose varieties would you recommend for full sunlight areas?
Many of the many-petaled roses, almost all roses will do well in full sunlight. My problem is I got a fair amount of shade. So besides camellias, I can grow some roses there in more shade. But if you have a very hot climate, I'm probably in the warmest part of San Mateo County. Down my back lot line is Santa Clara County. I'm in Menlo Park. But there are hotter areas. The people listening on this webcast, no doubt. And if you get a nice hot day like Gilroy or something, uh, and you've got uh, a good uh, rose that'll work down there on a very hot day, it'll be open, and maybe some of them will be burned. But uh, if you're in the coast and you're in Half Moon Bay, or you're in a cooler area, or it's just cool weather, and you don't have full sun, what may happen is you may get botrytis, which is a wilt. Um, it's a fungal disease, and it shows up as little pink dots on like a white rose on the outside, and then it'll turn brown and rot without opening. And sometimes they'll ball the many-petaled roses. So single roses do really well in the foggy area. Many-petaled roses do really well in the hotter areas in general. I like a lot of David Austin roses. I've got about 14 or 15, and they do just fine in the heat. Uh, I also like uh, the old roses, many of the old roses. If they have a lot of petals, sometimes they don't open unless it's warmer weather and sunnier. Other questions? Hello?
All right. Yeah, this one seems to be from a new gardener, somebody that wants to start growing roses. The question is whether is it okay to plant roses during the summer or plant, it sounds like around this time.
Uh, yes, but yes, you can plant them this time. However, uh, what I do to get a new rose in is I don't plant it in the ground the first year, partly because I've got so many roses, I need to find a place to put it. But also, you can keep it in a cooler, slightly shadier location that first year. You may not get as much bloom, but you'll let it get a good full root ball established. Say you bought a 5-gallon pot with a rose in it. You can put it into a bigger pot and get a uh, you can get a good soil mix, plant it in the pot, and it'll grow a year or two in that larger pot. But in the fall and winter is the best time to plant. You strip out all the leaves in the winter, plant it, and it works on growing roots until it starts in the spring. So that's the short answer. You can do it. Try not to burn it. If you put it in a black pot and out in the sun, it may have a hard time getting established. It might burn a little more easily.
All right. And this is a little more specific question. This person has Oklahoma rose variety, and they're having an issue where the plants keep dying despite being replaced. They're noting the plants have a strong stem bloom, but then die out. The ones next to them are fine. The plants are not crowded, and the roses that have been dying have leaves that turn brown.
Does it happen over one season? I guess I would ask. The reason I ask is this particular shot is a rose that used to be in my front yard. It was close to an area that had a tree removed that had died back, and it had the roots were rotten with a specific fungus that if the roots of a living woody plant like a rose hit that old root, it can kill the plant usually in one season. It starts to go yellow, they drop off, turn brown, drop off, and the plant dies. Uh, but there's an indicator. Thing is, this root fungus is pretty nasty. I've had 100 roses die in my yard in one area and had to replace the whole area. But you can tell by digging up the root carefully and not letting any of the root debris go anywhere. I spread it by having a dirty shovel, and I learned not to do that. But if it is that, uh, it will, underneath the root, you'll find a little, it's called a mycelium. The body of the fruiting body will look like a mushroom, but it doesn't come up once a year. But if you find mushrooms in your yard and they look honey colored, uh, those might be the fruiting body of that thing. But if you don't have that, and you look under the roots and the outside layer of the root doesn't have any white or yellowish stuff underneath, it's probably not that. That's one cause. When the fact that the other ones don't look bad, I don't know why. Uh, it's if you can send any pictures of the damage uh, and carefully look at the roots, they can be sent to the master gardeners. I tend to get all the rose questions anyway, but the difficult ones, but we can maybe help diagnose it.
Okay. And if this might be the problem, what would be the proposed treatment for that area?
Unfortunately, I researched this about 25 years ago, and there's not much progress since. Nothing that the home gardener can do anything except get rid of every bit of the uh, roots. That's hard for an older established rose because there are little pieces in there. Dig, 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 screen it out, throw out that soil someplace that you don't care about, that doesn't have woody plants. Shallow rooted plants are okay. Some other things are okay, but uh, that infects any woody roots. Anyway, Davis says that the only thing that can kill it or can be used commercially used to be uh, some very toxic materials that are used in orchards. You can't use them at home. And they used to be used for fumigating houses for termites. They don't use those anymore. It's methyl bromide and things like that. Uh, excuse me. So screen it, get all the roots out you can, throw those in the garbage, not in any compost pile, because you'll just perpetuate it as you spread out the compost. But in the garbage or in the city compost where they supposedly get it up to 140 degrees and it will kill it. And then replace the soil. I've replaced up to 7 cubic yards in an area that had this problem.
All right. Okay. And then this is the final question I have so far. Feel free, guys, you can keep sending them in. Do you have a favorite public rose garden on the San Francisco Peninsula?
Well, yes and no. I have, when you say public, what's public? Uh, I do like Filoli, and I've given tours for the docents up there. Uh, and it's nice, but it also always, like any rose garden, has the normal problems. Oh yeah, there's suckers, and oh yeah, you need more mulch here and all that. One that I was in this morning is a public rose garden that is small, but if you happen to be in Redwood City on 1400 Roosevelt Ave, uh, the Peninsula Rose Society, which I've been a member of since 1985, has taken over the management because they no longer have the staff to take care of it properly. And I was there this morning, deadheading, and it looks great. Uh, and it doesn't get sprayed, but it does get a lot of attention because we had like 8 volunteers there this morning for a couple hours. Now there are others that are very good in the Bay Area. If you go down south, certainly the San Jose Municipal Rose Garden, and then there's an old rose garden down there as well. The Golden Gate Garden in the Golden Gate Park, the Rose Garden is a very nice one. I guess you can go smell the corpse flower right now if you go up there. Uh, and
I've heard that.
yeah, I don't think I want to go. But anyway, I have been to that a number of times, and they have some very nice specimens. The On the peninsula, there are other really, really nice gardens, but those are a few. There's some out in Foster City that they've helped to take care of. There's a small one at the uh, off of Alameda de las Pulgas, the Beresford Garden. It's small, but it's available for the public. There are others.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions in here, so I think that might be it.
And don't forget that people can write in to request a copy of the slides.
Yeah, absolutely. So this class is going to be posted on Linkso's website tomorrow, linksogarden.com. You'll find it under community resources. All of the clinics that we do online are recorded and they are posted online. So you can go back. I believe Stu mentioned before he has more than one class on there. So especially if you enjoyed this class, I'd recommend going back and looking at some of the others as well. That'll be posted tomorrow. It should be up by noontime. And if you do want a copy of the PDF from Stu, just email us at info@linksogarden.com. we can pull that up for you and send it. I'll also send out a message to our Eventbrite people after everything's posted online. All right, thank you so much, Stu, for teaching us. I learned a lot here, and these classes are great. I go back and have my team watch them with me too, so it just really enhances all of our knowledge. So thank you.
Well, this one was fun. I did a little research and learned a little myself.
Yeah, well, that's always the goal in the end.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.